Welcome back to the Wrestling with the Faith podcast, everybody. My name is Evan. I'm joined as always by Dave, Laurel, and Ben. And in this podcast, we take a lesson from the coming Sunday and wrestle with what that means in our daily lives in today's modern day. This week, we're joined by a very special guest, my friend Chris. Owner of the 86 in Cincinnati, and a great person, and I've had a lot of great conversations with, both around religion and in life in general. So Chris, thanks for joining us this week.
Absolutely.
And so for this week, we're going to be talking through John 15, 9 through 17. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. So, to me, that's summing up to the command that I think a lot of us try to follow, of loving one another as Jesus has showed his love for him. But one of the things that first stuck out to me is laying down one's life for one's friends. So obviously Jesus laid his life down for all of us and to forgive us of our sins. But that's something that feels like it'd be harder for me, that laying down my life seems like it's a big thing. It's not something we think about in our daily lives. So unless, obviously, if there's other thoughts too, but if is that something that he's asking us to do? Do we lay down give up our lives for one another? Is he maybe asking us to do something else?
Yeah, I when I think about this one, so there's a popular song out now that talks about you take a bullet for your friend or whatever, but there's not a lot of bullets flying around. And so what does that really mean, to lay down your life? To give up your comfort, give up your whatever it is, so that you can go do something for a friend that really needs it. And because we don't live in a society where you have to necessarily take a bullet for your friend, unless you happen to be in that scenario, which doesn't happen much.
Yeah, I think any kind of sacrifice kind of applies there, right? I mean, laying down my life, could literally just be laying down my life with my family right now. It's like someone to sacrifice my time with my family, for someone in need, to go and spend time with them if they need help or need whatever.
I think one of the other things that struck me about this was, remember earlier on in some of the podcasts we talked about, Jesus wasn't telling them what was really going on, because it didn't really seem like they were ready to hear it, and now he's saying, you're no longer my disciples, you're my friends. I'm sharing with you everything. And so that really struck me as that kind of, he's making that transition to say, when he leaves, they speak for him.
So do we see ourselves maybe in those shoes as well, where, are we in that same position as the disciples of, being able to go out and kind of speak for Jesus? And is that something, we've done? Is that anything we've already done, we maybe thought about, or are there ways that could come up, in our daily lives?
Yeah, there's a quote. I want to say it's attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi, and I can't remember it completely, paraphrasing, but basically, make disciples every day, and when necessary, use words. Um, so I feel like that kind of applies here. Like, you should be doing that every single day, just through the love that you show to others.
Yeah, our pastor just quoted that actually this past Sunday. Yeah, said that same line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that show love to your neighbor, show love to everyone, and that piece.
I don't think it has, people hear that and they think it has to be some big, extraordinary whatever. It doesn't have to be just mow your neighbor's lawn, or whatever. You see the rain out in the paper and bring it up on their porch for them, or, I don't know. I think people overthink things too much when some of the smallest things can speak louder than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I'm definitely guilty of that, especially as we started off this podcast. Some of the early discussions and trying to think up of those kind of marching orders, so to speak, that we give each episode. I initially am thinking, okay, what's some big thing? I think early on, there were the thoughts of, taking the time to go to the various shelters to kind of help out, and making a big thing of that, when I think through our discussions is something that's much easier for a lot of people to grasp throughout and try to apply to their lives, is the kind of smaller day-to-day things of, okay, even at something as small as, you see someone that you pass in your daily routine that you don't really know, but a simple hi or kind of thing, like you're noticing them, could mean a lot, because we never know what other people are going through.
I just kind of went through that today. So I work for DoorDash part-time, and so I'm like picking up food and delivering it to people's houses. And so just today I was at a Ruby Tuesday restaurant picking up an order, and the food wasn't ready yet, so I was gonna have to sit around and wait a while. But the waitress said, if you want to relax, have a seat, and do you want anything to drink? I'm like, okay. Usually don't get that offer, but for whatever reason, and then we just talk, chit chat, whatever. But for whatever reason, that just really brightened my day. Yeah, so it's little things like that that make a huge difference.
That's a great story, Ben. I'm just thinking, yeah, I think it's just something great that we do need to keep in mind. It doesn't have to be some big extravagant speech or some big act. It can be a small act of kindness, right? That makes a big difference. So yeah, good point.
Wasn't Mother Teresa that said, small things done with great love will change the world?
One of the things too, with trying to love one another, love your neighbor as you do yourself, I feel like with a lot of people, especially nowadays, is harder, because big thing being politics, and that being something that tends to drive people apart, is that I feel like people tend towards that kind of division. And we've talked about this before, that I feel like humans by nature are looking for drama, and so that I think can be hard for some people. So maybe some of these things, these small things, may be easier to to show or express towards others, no matter who they are, and that it can slowly kind of erode that need for drama, that negativity from our lives, and start showing that love more and more to one another.
I want to point out that, the very end, this is my command, love each other. There's no exceptions to that. There's no love each other except if they're this political party, except if there's nothing. Sexual orientation, race, nothing. Religion, just love each other. And I think, I don't know, a lot of people might overlook that.
Yeah, good point, Ben. I've seen something somewhere that says something about that. I can't remember the quote now. A list, and then at the very end it says no exceptions. Kind of what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
No exceptions to that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, since we're supposed to be wrestling with the scripture, one of the things as I was reading through this that kind of struck me is in it where he says, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. And there's in John 14, he says it flips it. It's said the other way around. If you love me, keep my commands. So I was just wondering, is that really what was meant here, or is that just like the idiosyncrasies of the translation from the original language? Is he really saying, basically, it sounds like it's being said, only if you keep my commands will you remain in my love. And I don't know, that kind of struck me a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, especially because so much of his story throughout the Bible is the fact that he loves us regardless. And that's something we've talked about before. I mean, I forget how many weeks ago that was, but it's like not like it's giving you the open door to do whatever you want. Like we still need to strive to live by his example, but even if we slip up, and we're as humans we're bound to slip up at some point with something, whether it's something small, but I think as long as we continue to strive, and if when we slip up, we truly regret whatever happened, and if there is something we can do to right that wrong, and we try our best to do it, then I think his love will still continue. So I do wonder if that is that. I mean, even so, I think when I send out the invites and everything that I use to look up, is I use a website called BibleGateway.com, which you can pull up whatever read passages, and they've got 20 different versions of the Bible you can slip through, and that even between those you can get different wording and different meanings. And I mean that's what I try to do when I kind of read ahead beforehand, is flip through some of the different versions and see what those differences are, and especially if anything pops out. But
yeah, I think like Ben was saying, basically that last statement, this is my command, love each other, that's kind of the exclamation point of this whole verse. He I think that kind of clarified it for me, as I was reading through it, because he doesn't say, this is my command, love each other if they keep my commands, or it's not an if then, it's just love each other, period.
and maybe circling back a bit to our earlier discussion on the laying down one's life, and we talk about it's not necessarily giving up your life, but could be setting aside aspects or kind of stepping out of your comfort zone. So is there anything that comes to mind of an instance of that where, I mean, whether for a friend or someone random, that we've kind of gone out of our comfort zone to show God's love to them?
I'll say, Evan, in our with what we do at the time that you got involved with us at the coffee shop at the concert venue, I felt like, you know, we were in need of help sound wise and whatever, and you sacrificed a lot of time being there to serve us and serve with us and serve, you know, the community coming in. And, you know, just to me, something like that shows love over and above, you know, sacrificing your time or your Friday and Saturday nights or whatever. To me, that was big. And that definitely showed me, you know, this exact kind of love.
Though I will say it wasn't much of a sacrifice with as much fun as we had. I wasn't really out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I got you.
But yeah, certainly a lot of fun. And I mean, even that, you know, not being in the comfort zone, but even through that, with the number of people and different bands and artists that we had come through, you know, I'd like to think we at least touched them in you know, a good way. I mean, especially because when we had our kind of pre-show meetings with the bands, you know, talk through, you know, typical ground rules of what you can say and do, and, you know, trying to keep things clean. But then the fact that, you know, even if they themselves weren't Christian, you know, we would take the time and pray with them about, and specifically ask if they had anything specific they wanted us to pray about. And even in that, I'd like to think we've touched a good number of people.
I mean, I think there's some pretty simple examples too. Actually, just the other night, my sister got stuck. Her car wouldn't start at the airport, and we were at home having a family dinner, and you know, she could have called AAA, but you know, I could get there in 15 minutes, and so I just dropped what I was doing and went. And I remember even my kids were kind of like, really, can't you call, you know, but you know, there was just, because something I didn't even think about it. That was just kind of how I was brought up and what I always learned to do. And you know, there's lots of times where friends over the years have called and said, hey, I need your help, like right now, can you drop what you're doing? And you know, I think I'm blessed enough, and we're blessed enough to have a lot of friends that are kind of like that. If I called some of my friends at a moment's notice, they would drop what they're doing and come, unless they were, you know, unless it was life or death, whatever they were doing, they drop what they were doing and come. And so I think that's a great way to show your love. Now, granted, she's my sister, so I guess I kind of had to, but you know.
And I guess another thought for me was, you know, recently having moved into my house, and moving in, you know, a month or two before, you know, we hit a year-long lockdown, haven't really gotten to know a lot of my neighbors yet. But I remember one of the days when we got hit pretty hard with some snow, I think in January or something. I probably, with the way my driveway is, you know, it all funnels, and I probably had 1.5 feet, 2 feet of relatively dense snow. But then had my neighbor across the street trying to get out of his driveway, but they had a little, because their driveway is one of those where it's the 2 strips of concrete with like the grass and dirt all around, and had a little pothole at the end, and the car got stuck in that little ditch. So we were, you know, shovels, and I think we had some pieces of tile or something we were trying to use to get at least something firm underneath the wheel, and probably took a good couple hours and slipping a few times. But at least I think, you know, a good first way to me to kind of meet neighbors and being able to show that love and kind of trying to help get them out of a tough situation.
No, it's So the last few years have been really kind of, I don't know. I just heard the other day, and I don't know where, I didn't even hear where this came from. I just heard them talking about it on the radio that for the first time ever, the United States has fallen under 50% people professing as Christians. And I just think about the last few years, you know, when I'm looking through, I was doing the same thing that Evan did, pulling up things on Bible Gateway and pulling up, you know, verses, John 13, you know, by the way you love each other, that's how people will know you're my disciples. And then this one, you know, this is my command to love each other. And then, you know, and you know, then when he talks about the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God, you know, and love others as yourself, and on and on and on, that's repeated. And man, just what I've seen the last few years is not any of this. And it just no surprise to me, especially dealing with college students the way that we do. To me, seeing them turn away in droves just because they're not seeing this, you know. So I don't know, not to bring a downer to the discussion or whatever, but it's something that's really been heavy on my heart for a while now. And I don't know. I just, everything, you know, and of course, media, the way they play it, they always pick the crazies on either side, you know. So I think 80% of the United States is just average people like you and me who are living our lives and trying to do our best and trying to love each other. And, you know, then you have the fringe in either direction that are, but for sure, the quote unquote Christians that you see depicted on the news and in rallies and everything else, it's none of this that I can tell.
And I mean, talking about being on a college campus, I mean, one of the things I vividly remember my time down at UC was, you know, you had one of the guys up on, you know, kind of on the main concourse of campus, you know, with the megaphone saying, you know, don't follow what I'm doing, you know, you're going to go to hell, kind of thing. And one of the reasons it sticks in my mind so vividly too, more on the funny side, was because he had basically the same kind of thing written out on this big banner stretched between these PVC pipes that he had strapped to his back. And it was incredibly windy that day. But I mean, again, to that point is what I feel like a lot of people nowadays, what's most prevalent in their mind that they see most are some of those real vocal, and that you know isn't as welcoming. And I know I've talked before that, at least in a few instances, being able to be able to show my love to others, and especially to some friends that, you know, aren't Christian for whatever reason it may be. And even if there's still some of them, you know, it's still not something they're quite comfortable with, but the fact that, you know, I've expressed to them that passion, that compassion, and that a lot of it comes from, you know, my faith and what I've been brought up with, that I think it has opened some doors, and at least in a few small spots, as we try to do what we can in the day-to-day to whittle out and maybe bring that compassion back around to more people.
I've got one of those bullhorn kind types of people in my life, and I've heard this person, you know, when you go right past the verse that we're talking about, the next heading is the world hates the disciples, and it said, if the world hates you, keep in mind they hated me first. And I've heard those, you know, the bullhorn toting kind of people, you know, use that like they hate me just like they hated Jesus too. But right before that, I was saying, this is my command to love each other. And I think what was being said is that even if the world will hate you, even if you're loving. It's easy for the world to hate you if you're hating. You know what I mean? So I feel like that gets misconstrued. Oh, well, the world hates me, so I must be doing something right. No, the world hates you because you're hating for, you're spewing hate, so it's being returned. That's different.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about in previous episodes that the social media and your phone accelerating kind of the hate that's going on and separating us and everything, and you just see that more and more over the last few years. And really some of that is our Christians. We had done a book study on something called When Christians Get It Wrong, which is a really cool book. If you ever get it, really, it's only thin, like this big, so it's perfect for me. But it really just has some real kind of basic thoughts of that kind of a bullhorn kind of mentality, and just kind of misreading what the whole purpose is, and showing love as opposed to yelling and screaming and yelling at each other and saying you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, and it certainly does, again, I think with a lot of the commands and a lot of these lessons, is it all boils down to, those simple 3 words of, simple, maybe a bit of a stretch, but love each other. I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of times where loving one another is going to be difficult. I mean, certainly I know we've all probably had those instances where we do our best, and it may make us uncomfortable in certain situations, and that's something that we need to do. I mean, but it all boils down to that, love.
Yeah, there was a few years ago, we had a friend who has a organization that deals with sexual abuse, and his organization was had a booth down at the Cincinnati Pride Parade, and we wound up walking with his group in the parade, and being in the parade and walking through and having the Christians on every corner with the bullhorns just spewing such hate. I mean, it was, for a week after that, Monica and I were just absolutely devastated by what we saw and heard, and it was awful. And so I mean, I've come to a point in my faith walk where I had it written down. There was, I think it was in like 1209, Pope Innocent III, during some of the Crusades, they were going in to kill Christians, and the soldiers asked, how do we know which ones are Catholic and which ones are Christians? And they said that the kind of rally cry was kill them all and let God sort them out. And we've just arrived at a point where, to us, it's love them all and let God sort them out. All this extraneous garbage, whether you're gay or not, whether you're, whether you're baptized or not, whether you're sprinkled or dipped, or, all these man-made things that don't matter. Like I've gotten to a point where I can't worry about any of that stuff anymore. I'm here to love people, and from there it's between them and God.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great phrase for, I'm definitely I'm going to need to write that down and keep it on my board, of love them all and let God sort them out. Because I mean, I know I've heard that kill them all line, and I want to say I've even seen it used. Some people reference that nowadays with everything going on, and Jesus. I mean, even though you talk about the arrival of Jesus and how everybody wanted that warrior that was going to throw out the the Romans and everything, but instead, he's there showing love, and that's exactly it. And Jesus wasn't a warrior in that sense, and it really is, we gotta love each other. I mean, we're all here together, and that's what that's what God and Jesus taught us to do. That's what they showed us, and that's what what we should be doing, even if it's in smaller ways. We don't have to make it some big gesture, but those around you, you can make a big impact with something small, like a drink while you're waiting for an order to be ready, or spending time helping out in whatever way it could be. But
Wow, that sounds like marching orders.
That was a good summary, Evan.
Yeah, marching or get the love them all tattooed somewhere on your
Love
arm.
them all, let God sort them out.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've talked about it, but what could be a simple thing we can keep in mind, in our day-to-day lives, that's something we can easily do to help show compassion?
There's so many things. I mean, pay for the order of the person behind you in the drive-through. Pick up someone's newspaper that's in the rain. I mean, just see someone, say something nice to someone that you would normally. Well, you look nice today. You'd never know. Someone said it earlier. You never know what someone else is going through, and just one nice word could be what saves someone's life. Like, not to be melodramatic, but literally.
Absolutely. All right. So yeah, love them all, let God sort them out. I think that'll be our tagline for this episode. So again, thank you, Chris, for joining us this week. It's great having you, and great getting to talk with you again. Is there anything coming up for you that you'd like people to know about?
No. No, not at all. No, if you're in Cincinnati, I run a coffee shop called the 86. Stop in and see us, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Or if you're not, the Numa, where you guys roast your own coffee in house.
If there's anybody that has churches or cafes and looking for ministry-based direct trade coffee, we would love to supply your coffee house, your church, your cafe.
I want to say it's PNEUMA.
Yep.
Coffee.
NumaCoffee.com.
We'll give a link to Ben so that we can have it in the description of the YouTube video for people to click on. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, let us know what you thought about what we've discussed, or if there's someone else you'd like us to have on, or a topic you'd like us to wrestle with. We'd love to hear back from you. You can also find us through various social medias with Prince of Peace Lutheran Church in Westlake, Ohio. Thank you all for joining us, and keep wrestling.